Hi, this is John Firth. I'm here with Tom Johnson for another installment of Firth and Friends. And we're going to be addressing the evergreen topic of hiring and careers. And Tom is a career executive recruiter. He has, like many executive recruiters, now become more of a career consultant or career counselor. And we're going to talk about the dynamic of this new system, not so new actually, but where technology has really sort of preempted the more high-touch, personalized version of looking for a job with resume drops, essentially. And we're going to talk about the conundrums that both the companies face in terms of getting to the people that they need at a decent cost, and those looking for a job who are trying to find the right fit and where they're constantly coming up against automated systems. So I am the CEO of Executives Over 50. We are a forum for executives over 50 to figure out their next steps, usually career-wise, but also can be just simply doing something different. So Tom, why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, John, thank you very much. And I'm really glad to be here and glad to help. Just reality, what we're finding today, the market is really, really difficult. A lot of people are struggling. Companies are struggling to hire talent. People are really finding the market very, very frustrating. And my goal is to get out there and try to help. We launched my new firm, Sonova Talent Solutions, a few months ago. We're really trying to do things a bit differently. My background, very quickly, I've been in executive search since literally the late 80s. I helped build the interim and fractional industry way back in the early days. I've worked for some of the largest search firms in the world, most recently the number 7th largest search firm globally. And as I decided to start basically my encore career, I decided to do something a little bit different. And I think the world needs some help. The search industry, the world of work is struggling. So what we're doing is I do executive search, and I'm building an executive search firm, but we're doing things a bit differently. We're starting with helping people manage their career from graduation to retirement and everywhere in between. We've created a company, myhuntpath.com. I wrote a book, Where's Your Buffalo, teaching people how to take everything that I've learned over the years as a recruiter to better help themselves manage their career using my techniques and methodologies. And then we're also helping companies find talent, but we're also going to be doing some things to help people build and recruit talent if they can't afford me. Remember, recruiters are a little bit expensive. We charge a pretty good fee for what we do. We want to be called in when you really have a highly focused need where you need the best talent. But beyond that, if you're going to hire 1 or 1,000, I'm willing to share everything I know to try to help people better recruit talent and manage through, what's going on today, which is very, very difficult. It's really broken. The online stuff doesn't really work. I can share a little bit. Recruiters work for companies, not people. And so we're kind of doing something a little bit different, and we're trying to help as many people as possible.
So you talk about sort of things you've learned. What are some of the tips, techniques, things that you've learned that you'd like to impart to people, I won't say stuck in a career search, but let's say in a transition where maybe it isn't happening the way it used to, especially when you get older?
Well, when you think about, nobody really teaches us how to look for a job. I'm of the generation where you get out of school, go to work for a big company, hopefully don't do anything wrong, you retire, get a watch and a pension. Well, that's disappeared. So people now have to take, I call it individual career management. They got to manage their own career. But the reality is we have to get in front of the process. You can't, to just talk about the way the job boards are working. The job boards and, the Indeeds and the Zip recruiters and all that, that's a broken system. It's been broken since the beginning for a couple main reasons. One, it's a public site, meaning if you put your resume up on these sites, other people can see it, including your boss, the people you're working for today. Nobody should know you're moving to a new role until you're actually there and you want to tell people. So that's the first problem. The second is they encourage people to leave their resumes up on these sites. So they've created a whole class of people that are constantly looking for the next best thing. When I do a search for a client, one of the first things they tell me is don't bring me anybody that's active on the job board, that's out there looking for something new, because they know they'll bring them in and 12 to 18 months later, they're going to go to somewhere else. So they want people that are committed. The other problem is they never created filters. So in the early days, way back in the days of monster.com, and maybe some of you guys remember that, they allowed anybody to apply for any role. So the problem immediately became hundreds, if not thousands of people were applying for roles. So the company had to sort through all of those resumes. So the technology today has been built to eliminate candidates, not be inclusive, be exclusive, to go through all those resumes and try to find the top 5. That's wrong. And then technology has allowed people to be able to do this stuff. Unfortunately, they're doing it while they're working. They're doing it when they're sitting out, supposed to be working for somebody else. So the whole system is broken, especially for more senior level people on the polyvalent professionals, people with 25, 30 years experience. Very, very difficult for them because technology and even recruiters are trying to put them in a box when in reality they can sit in 10 different boxes because of the different things they've done over the years. And so they get eliminated. So they find it very, very frustrating. So that, I think, is part of the problem. What we're trying to do is get people in front of it, find the companies you want to work with, build relationships inside of those companies. So when the opportunity presents itself, you get the call. That's how 80% of the roles are filled before they post it on the job boards or call the expensive recruiter. They look for on their team, who do you know that could do this role? So my program and my book teaches people how to get more proactive versus reactive in chasing things on the internet.
Yeah.
So hopefully those that can help.
Executives over 50 works with the older executives who are basically looking for their next career move, job, next activity. And we've had some success and really good successes. One woman really held out for what she really wanted and that she knew she was best suited for. It took her over a year. She had a job offer, but it wasn't really what she wanted. And she took a risk and they rescinded the offer after she said she couldn't say yes yet. She was waiting for another offer, which didn't come. Another woman who ended up not becoming a client had sent out 1,140 resumes over a year, gotten 6 interviews. And so it really is treacherous. I think, one of the things I've learned over the last year is that you really do have to be crystal clear on who you are, what value add, the kind of company you're happiest at, the role that you think you're best suited for. You really have to be very clear. And then then you have to kind of throw it out the window and say, I've got to go hunting now. And let's hope I find it, but I've got to use my network. Without a network, and everybody has a network, it's not going to work. So what we discovered is somebody like this one woman, she knew 100% what she wants. There's others who are, I could see myself. And your network is going to begin to offer opportunities if you're really using it.
Well, one of the things, as we get older in our career, especially over 50, after 25, 30 years, the group of people that we want to get up every day, come in and charge the hill, that group gets smaller and smaller, right? As we sit there and, we become much more selective as to where we want to work, what we're going to do. Reality, most of the people that I'm working with that are over 50, the proverbial polyvalent professionals, they are actively looking for a new role, but they're going to be very, very selective. They're going to, if the culture isn't right, if they don't have a voice, if they don't believe in the product or service, if they don't have a team that they feel inspired by, they're going to pass. I recently had one of my partners walk away from a C-level role with a $500,000 signing bonus because there was conflict in the executive suite that he saw during the interview process. That's not what I want to do. In reality, a lot of these senior professionals are going to do consulting. They're going to do interim and fractional. That's a big growing area in the market.
Go on boards. A lot of them try to find boards.
And many of them are, they're still looking for that right role when it comes, but they're going to do multiple things. As a matter of fact, I'm starting to hire quite a few of them to come in and help me grow my business.
I'm seeing that.
Give them just something else to do as fractional partners, very open. And we think that's going to really kind of flip this whole model around. But in reality, the world of work is changing. And once you get to a certain point, those W-2 roles that you even want are getting smaller and smaller, less. So you're going to have to kind of bring together maybe a different approach. And the final encore career may not be a traditional W-2 job. It might be working with startups. It might do advisory and consulting, as I mentioned, interim and fractional, sitting on boards, and doing a number of different things as we, finish up our career. So it's a different world today, but there's high receptivity to the skill set And on the flip side, what we're trying to also do is to teach companies to look beyond the resume, beyond the LinkedIn profile. There's some very, very talented people that are more than willing to help you, but they may not be what you're exactly looking for. They may
So what does that process look like? What does that look like for a company? Because you're sort of asking them to kind of rethink a lot of, or maybe jettison some beliefs they have about their recruitment process.
Well, I think they have to get more proactive. They got to be willing to be a little bit more creative in who they look at from a talent point of view. Don't discard the 25 years experience that people can bring to the table.
Yeah. No,
but
it's
put
important.
it in a way. Maybe you bring them in on an interim basis. Maybe you bring them in on a fractional basis. Maybe you can't afford them 40 hours a week, but maybe you can afford them 40 hours a month to come in and help you set strategy, make introductions for you, help you build your company. But we just have to be a little bit more creative in the way you look at talent, understanding that, trying to fit somebody with 30 years experience into a role where literally you may want to create a role for them where they can help you in a variety of different ways. Leverage the experience. Don't be afraid of it. Don't be pushed off by it. Embrace it. And I think that's something that we have to get people to start thinking about more.
So this one client of mine, or member of my Executives Over 50 group, she is an expert in transformation. She's been a transformation consultant, digital and otherwise. And that was the role she was looking for. She had run smaller groups and bigger consulting firms and actually small consulting firms. So she started on this pathway with a fairly well-known, not of the large Big Four, but an accounting consulting firm. And she discovered very quickly, through a connection of her brother-in-law, she got to talk to the CEO. And she discovered that they were standing on the precipice of a transformation. And she began asking for additional, who could I talk to next about this? And when she was ready to go in and actually pitch the job, a internal transformation champion, the COO who was overseeing the whole initiative actually didn't even let her speak. He offered her that job. And they hadn't even discussed it. She had talked to 7 or 8 people, and like a good consultant, she had formed her opinion, and she went in, and she and I practiced the conversation a couple of times to pitch him on this job. And lo and behold, he offered it at the salary she wanted, and she's totally happy.
One of the things I also, a tip I always give many of the senior people that are in transition is leverage an asset that they don't really realize they have, and that's time. I have somebody that I'm working here that's really around innovation, and she had a company that she had targeted that she felt she can bring huge value to. It was in her industry, one of the direct competitors for a former company. When she met with the CEO, he didn't have a role, didn't quite know how to work with her. So she offered to go in and spend some time with him to help him figure out how she can best help him. So she was willing to donate some of her time, learn a bit more about his operation, spend a bit of time thinking about where he wanted to get the company to in the next 2 to 3 years. And during that process, she didn't ask for any money. She didn't ask for a consulting contract. She helped him frame out how he was going to hire her. And it became pretty simple. And she's now finally putting a deal together because he realized how much value she could. I almost call that a working interview, right? Show them how good you are and what you can do. The other tip I always offer, look to these small startup companies. They're desperate for talent. They need help. Many of them can't afford that senior level experience, but they need it. Go in and help them, advise them. Don't be looking for a lot of money up front, but at the end, when they do get funding and they start growing, you become a part of their company. Maybe you sit on their board. Maybe you actually take a role with them, but you build those relationships when you have the time to do it, which I think is.
And if we look at what, say, an executive in his 50s or her 50s has, that an executive in their 30s doesn't have, one, experience and wisdom, but also the network
and knowledge,
also the emotional IQ or the EQ. It's fascinating to see how a couple of scars and battle scars and wounds, ratchet up, and you realize just how difficult this can be for some people, and your empathy levels go up as I think as you get older, they should. And it's amazing to me because when we were growing up, I don't think there was that divide there, that generation gap in the 70s where the old people were fighting wars and then us cool, hip young people. And it's amazing to me how actually open younger people are to being mentored and coached by older people. There doesn't seem to be that divide that we had in our generation in the 70s and 80s.
And, I think being a mentor, being advising and helping the younger company, it's very fulfilling. It can be very rewarding, but having somebody that's been there, done that, they know the mistakes not to make. They can show you and make introductions for you. They can bring you credibility when you're talking to customers and when you're talking to investors and partners. And I think that can be very, very valuable, and they're desperate for the help. And so I think that's a great way to transition, and then the opportunities will present themselves.
Yeah. I'm finding all sorts of creative solutions among my core clients, which are business owners. Everything from a staffing agency for events that's looking for what he calls rangers, the CEO calls rangers, which is people who have been in the hospitality industry, have more or less retired, but want to keep their foot in the door, don't want to work full time, certainly don't want to do the sort of more grueling work, but want to have a network that they can draw on both for projects or for leads, for contracts, but also for wait staff and so forth.
Sure.
So people are getting much more savvy. And I think part of what's feeding it also, there seems to be this general, and I don't agree with it, but this general belief that the millennials or whatever they're called, the X generation, whatever come after the baby boomers, doesn't work as hard.
Well,
and
John,
that's a conundrum. I don't agree with it because I think they work just as hard. They work actually smarter, I think.
Well, remember, John, even back in the 70s and 80s, when you and I were building our career in 90s, we always had, we go into any operation, we had the 3 or 4 that just crush it and work hard every day. Right. And then the other ones that just kind of slide along. We've had people like that for all generations. And I think one of the things, kind of going back to what you mentioned, I'm building my company on leveraging these senior level executives. Mm-hmm. I'm bringing them in as fractional partners. Not only do my search clients absolutely love me bringing my search experience combined with industry and functional experience. Mm-hmm. It's a whole different way of approaching a search because it gives us much more depth and credibility to help the client. But it also gives, at any point in time, whether you're consulting or sitting on a board, at some point you have to hire new people, part-time people, interim people, and, leveraging those networks and those relationships. Mm-hmm. You've got the execution engine that I think is going to really help us grow exponentially. We're probably going to have 50 of these partners on board at Sonova by the end of the year. So very, very different approach.
It's a model we're seeing a lot. And in some ways, executives over 50 is going to go in that direction, most likely a variation of that. But it is a model I'm seeing sort of senior, since I come out of the consulting industry, we're seeing a lot of former consultants or their clients banding together with a whole bunch of gray-haired executives who are basically staffing these what do we call them, communities, and so forth. For those of you who are just turning in, joining us, this is why the best people aren't interviewing or working at your company. I'm here with Tom Johnson, and we're talking about some of the things that you can do if you're a candidate to get that job that you may or may not be looking for. Generally, we do advocate that you have a pretty good idea what you're looking for, especially when you're over 50, but then also what companies can do. What are you seeing the companies actually doing now?
Well, I think a couple things. Number one, as I mentioned earlier, they need to be a little bit more expansive in who and the talent that they're looking at. Understand that, having somebody with more experience isn't a bad thing. Just find a way to make them fit into your strategic plan. Number two, whether you're hiring one person or you're hiring 1,000, everyone in that process has to think like a recruiter. And, my job is to go out and we identify great talent. We can get them to the table. But at that point, it becomes your role to cross them over and hire them. And a big part of that whole process and what we do as recruiters comes down to a very simple concept called why. Every great candidate that I put in process with a client will be sitting on the other side of that desk with one question: why? Why am I going to walk away from a very successful role at a great company where I'm really doing well? Because those are the talent we go after. Why am I going to come join your company? The client has to be able to answer that question effectively. Now, the client's asking the candidate the same thing. Why am I going to hire you? So we got to get to the whys. But a company has to really focus on engaging and giving them a valid reason to make that move. And I can tell you, I've worked with clients. I had one that worked for a big consumer product company. I can't tell you who the name of it is, but I'll never, ever drink their soft drink again. But the first person that the candidate talked to, the candidate came away from that interview and he said, Tom, that was the most uncomfortable interview I've ever had. It felt like inquisition. The hiring authority, which was an HR leader, was aggressive, demeaning, and really put them completely off, where he said, I will never work with that company. Great candidates will turn down roles if you can't give them the why. And it's not just about the money. They want culture. They want to see career growth. They want to feel like they have a voice and a seat at the table. They want to feel like what they're doing matters. They want to believe in the company and the service and the product. And you've got to engage them. And you've got to make them feel that this is going to be a great step, or they're going to say no and keep recruiting. So again, you've got to think like a recruiter. I can get people excited about an opportunity, but as a company, if you're in that role and those candidates are sitting in front of you, you've got to engage them. You've got to answer their why and get them focused on why this is going to be the best move for you and your family is to come join us. And you got to be able to have that pitch down solid, or they're going to say no.
So it's interesting because I deal a lot with people who've lost their job, usually through downsizing. And there are several coaches who work with me in Executives Over 50 who are outplacement coaches. And they're saying it's amazing how many people are losing their jobs. Now, a lot of them are turning around very quickly and finding the next job, but it's especially in the technology field. So it's a great disruptive industry. What does it look like when you've been let go? You're 58, you're a senior executive, maybe even possibly a CEO. What does that look like for them?
I think
there's a lot of difference.
You got to look at it as an opportunity. You've got to get your mindset right? And I try to teach everyone and coach everyone. It's not about, going out and trying to find another role. It's, hey, I'm now available. Who's going to be lucky enough to get me to come help them, and kind of switch the mindset. If, there's always been, companies are growing, they're laying off people. Even in technology, they may be technology always has been disruptive. When something new comes along, everybody shifts over, they start bringing in new skill sets and the old skill goes away. But that doesn't matter. I think what you have to do is just keep looking at where you're heading. One of the other things that I think is really important that will help somebody over 50 is, the subject of my book is Where's Your Buffalo? Reality, it's really not about the buffalo, even though that's a great analogy. It's more of a sailing analogy, but you have to set a destination and a goal. When you sit down, before you go out and start looking for role, applying for jobs, even working your network, you got to know what you're trying to get to. What is that new opportunity going to look like? What are you going to be doing? And which companies are ideally going to give you that opportunity? And then I'll teach you how to move into those, build those relationships to get that role. But the key thing that I teach is a concept called concentric circles. Reality, if you put a bullseye up on the wall, whenever you walk away from a company, the number one target companies you should be looking at are direct competitors of the company you just left. For every company laying off, there's a smaller company growing. And that happens. But look at the direct competitors. The next ring are your vendors and your customers. I'll give an example. I had a gentleman working for a big technology company here in Cleveland. He got let go in a downsizing. I started working with him in one of my programs, and he took this concept to heart and immediately went to their largest customer. What his role in the original tech company was to finalize all the contracts on the sales team. So when the national contracts came in, the sales guys would bring it in and say, okay, now, John, go fill out and get all the paperwork done. We just
master services agreement.
Yeah, he was the contract guy. Well, they let him go. We went to their biggest competitive client in the market, and guess who showed up 3 weeks after he got hired to re-engage their national account? Well, imagine the look on the national sales guy's face when he walked in and saw the former contract guy that did his contracts sitting at his number one customer with a huge smile. And he said, look, you're going to get the deal, but you're not going to get the deal you think you're going to get. It's going to be a fair deal on both sides. He saved that company a couple $1 million in his third week. They couldn't hire him fast enough.
Yeah.
So, but as you go further away from that bullseye target, which you can do, but then you have to set realistic expectations. The further you get away, they're not going to pay you maybe what you got at your previous role, because you're walking into an industry you don't know. But you got to be more flexible. But again, and then earn your way back to where you want to be based on the goals that you set.
Yeah, and it depends on the role too.
Absolutely.
Something like a staff function in finance or whatever. Yeah, there are multiple industries that could probably use your skills. Use the skills of a finance person. If you're a salesperson, perhaps less so. If you're a product developer, probably it's very difficult to cross industries a lot, unless it's technology based and the whole product lives and breathes because of the back end technology. What would you say to how am I going to phrase this? This whole idea that you come in as a contractor, prove yourself, and then go into a full-time role. That makes a lot of people nervous, but they're discovering they don't really have much of a choice. Well, how do you get people comfortable with that?
You need to evaluate every one of those opportunities. Is it going to be a role that you even want to move into a full-time role? Will it help you gain experience, expand your network, help better tell your story as you go to the next role, as you move towards that ultimate goal, right? I call it the Buffalo. It's actually the city of Buffalo. If you read my book, you'll read.
That's the Buffalo. For some reason, I was thinking of the Buffalo roaming.
No, it's the city of Buffalo. Okay. Well, we're not going to go down there. But if you read my book, you'll see what it's all about. But ultimately, is it getting you closer to your goal or getting you further away? So when you look at these contract opportunities, you still have to evaluate them. Is it going to be something that you can bring value to? Is it something you can help them advance their goals? Is it going to get you closer to your goals? In my opinion, it's better to be engaged and working and helping versus sitting at home looking at a computer being frustrated. Get out there because you never know where those relationships will lead.
Exactly.
And what I tell candidates is, even if they offer you the job, now you get a chance to go in and determine whether you even want to go work there.
Yep.
You may go in for a few months, help them out and go, yeah, this isn't what I'd like to do. But maybe you get in there and you feel engaged, you get energized. And they say, are you willing to come in on a full-time basis? Absolutely. But it's an opportunity for both parties to evaluate each other. And we're going to see more and more of that as people, because we're actually in what I consider a risk-averse environment on both sides. Companies want to hire people they know that can bring value, help them move forward. They don't want to hire somebody and find out 6 months later they made a mistake. So they're very adverse to risk. That's why sometimes they're willing to pay our search fees so we can really do a thorough job of finding and vetting talent. But on the other side, great candidates will walk away from great opportunities if it doesn't meet all of their goals and expectations as it relates to their career. So they don't want to take the risk. So we're managing that. It's never been like that before. Back, different times, the candidate has more influence and control, or the company. Today, it's risk averse on both sides. So that's where you just have to say that's the reality of the world and manage your way through it.
Yeah. And being in such a disruptive period of time where, every day the technology changes. One thing we haven't talked about is the skill sets of someone who's older. Technology is a fact of life for everybody. In fact, I would hazard a guess that I'm more comfortable with technology now than I ever have been because I have no choice. If I'm a solopreneur, there are certain pieces of art, certain platforms and technologies I need, otherwise I'll never get my work done. AI generated, for example. So there's a need to buff up your skill sets. What if have you ever gotten people who actually can't seem to put their finger on the mercury of what they want to do? Again, usually these are people who've lost their job and suddenly find themselves looking into
what I encourage them is before you start that search, you have to take time. And I have people take sometimes weeks, even months to really sit down and think through, where do I want to be 3 years from now? And, we look at location, we look at role, we look at compensation, we look at lifestyle flexibility. Many people, when they get into their later part of their career, they're not looking for that 9 to 5, 2 week vacation type of thing. They want a bit more flexibility. They want to maybe travel more. They maybe want to spend time at a vacation home. These are all things that senior level people that become part of their decision on what roles they're going to take or projects they're going to take on. Reality, we also become a little bit less flexible. You know, I have some people say, look, I am living in Florida and I'm not moving anywhere.
Right.
I'll work virtually. I'll work remotely. I'll come in and, you know, spend a week and then travel, but I'm not going to move. So we have to think a little bit outside the box. And I think that's one of the things, you know, if the role doesn't align, then don't do it.
Right.
Next, keep looking. Opportunities will continue to present themselves, but you have to be proactive. And, you know, recruiters will reach out if roles align. More senior you are, the more likely you may be getting those calls for interim and fractional work. That's a big part of what they're looking for. When we do a senior level, C-level role, you know, they give us very specific parameters around what they're looking for. I just pitched on a nonprofit CEO search. The current executive director is retiring after 40 years. They want somebody that can be there for 20 years. They're looking for somebody to grow and take the organization to the next level. So they're not discriminating against somebody that's 65 years old, but they want somebody more aligned in, you know, their early mid 40s where they still got a runway ahead of them of 15, 20 years. That's just what the search calls for.
Yeah.
We're not discriminating. We're just following what our clients are asking us for.
And I think it comes back to the same thing, which is, you know, when you're in your 50s and with lots of experience, wisdom, and so forth, you're not an ordinary employee. You step out of the ordinary. Either, as we discussed, the company will create a role for you because they need somebody with your skill set, but it's not one of those, well, here's the little box over here that we'll put you in.
Right.
It's as an advisor or something else. But, you know, as we get more clear about who we are as people and what we want to leave behind, our legacy, if you will, we become more choosy. But then the employers are becoming more flexible and saying, look, this is great talent. We'll figure out what we can do with this person, either because of their network or their wisdom.
Well,
so it's, I'm actually very optimistic for executive director.
But also understand most larger companies, especially ones that many people are targeting and applying for, there is such a thing as succession planning, and they're doing it. You know, when a senior leader leaves, more often than not, they have somebody stepping into the role. So those roles are not plentiful. And when they don't have somebody that can step in, they are going to look out. But I think, you know, as we got to maybe look at the smaller companies, the ones that are emerging, and just be a bit more flexible on both sides.
Yeah. And I think what it really comes down to, or what I'm discovering, is not only do you have to want to do it, does it have to be on some level, something where you say, this is going to feel good, I'm going to have an impact. But you also, I constantly remind people, it's networking, it's fun. You should not look at this as a daunting task. You're going out and talking to people you know. Yes, you may have to swallow your pride if you've lost your job and say, I'm looking. But I think once you get over those couple of hurdles and you're really at one with the fact that you're networking with a bunch of people who want to help you. People want to help other people.
Well, and give an example. There was a woman here that I was working with in her mid-50s, had gotten let go from a automotive company in a marketing role. And she decided she wanted to get into healthcare. Well, I happen to be calling, if people don't know it, I'm in Cleveland, Ohio. There's a little organization here called the Cleveland Clinic. Everyone on the planet Earth in healthcare wants to work for the Cleveland Clinic. They get thousands of resumes a day. So the recommendation I made for her is, look, do some volunteer work. Once you're in the building, you can start meeting people in the building. And once you meet them and create a relationship, then they can help you network. You may have to do some project work. You may have to do some things that maybe you did very early in your career, but that's how exactly what you said, John. You've got to build relationships. Once you know them and can look them in the eye because you're there helping them on some things, then they'll do what they can to get you and open the door for opportunities. It's always better to be inside the building than on the outside trying to get in. Once you're in, and you've got keys and you're walking around, you're meeting people, you're building your internal network in an organization you want to work with. That is a valuable use of your time, and it can pay off down the road. And it actually she wound up volunteering at an event, which meant she sat at the front desk greeting everybody, met the whole team that was running the event. They wound up giving her some projects, not big ones, but she did a phenomenal job on it. Projects kept getting bigger. And then when a role opened up, she'd already built an internal network, but it took her 18 months, but she wound up getting where she wanted to get to. So,
and I mean, most people, well, no, I shouldn't say this, but a lot of senior executives at least have some sort of nest egg that they can sit on if they're going to have to go for 12 to 18 months without any kind of normal salary. It's the unfortunate ones are the ones who haven't saved properly.
The role is
against their head.
Leverage other things, to hopefully if they're let go, they get a severance. There are some opportunities collecting unemployment, though it's not something I've done a lot of. You've got to it's income. And then do the projects, work some fractional roles, get out there to try to generate income until the right role comes up. So yes, it is difficult, and we do understand that, but you got to be active, and you got to be proactive, and you got to work at it 8 hours a day. Not an hour a day, and then go play golf for 9 hours and wonder why you're not getting opportunity.
Right, exactly.
Looking for
or not leaving your apartment. I mean, the other thing is you talk about getting out into the world, into the other, somewhere that's not your home. Sometimes getting people out of their home in this day and age of Zoom and Google Meet and so forth. Even that, I mean, I spend most of my time right now in this box of, 15 by 10 feet. It's kind of hard to leave.
Well, one of the tips I could do is, in LinkedIn is whenever you're reaching out and networking with people, it's always work into the conversation. How can I help you? How can I help you? How can I help you? Don't be calling in and asking for help. Say, look, I'm trying to build my network. I'm open looking for new opportunities. Somebody mentioned that your organization was great. I'd love to connect with you. How can I help you? Right. And then the thing that most people don't do is follow up. Don't think that make a connection, connect with somebody, that it's going to happen. You got to nurture that every 30, 45 days, pop a message, send a link, invite them to a webinar like this, maybe grab a cup of coffee, build that relationship. Because technically, when you're looking for a job, you're the salesperson and you're the product. And so it's important. We all know the average number of contacts to make a sale is 9. You've got to start building that relationship.
Yeah, and that is, for anybody, I think, especially now, as a solopreneur, I spent most of my time trying to follow up, and I'm terrible at it. I'm the first to say that I'm terrible at it. I actually have an AI tool that a possible client has developed that helps him with the follow-ups, because I've got anywhere between, depending on how you count them and sort through them, between 50 and 100 people that are somewhere out there that I'm interested in. They may be interested in me. And one meeting just doesn't do it. You have to have sometimes multiple meetings, if not 4 or 5, before you even know if this is going to be a good fit between what I do and what they need.
We have actually created a little CRM. The reality, my whole program is teaching people how to think and act like a recruiter. So we teach them that skill set, and then we give them the tools. And the tools are really a cell phone, computer, LinkedIn, and a CRM to manage your network. And then ongoing from there through webinars and podcasts, we coach and support them to be able to get out there. But you're right. You've got to really have a system. We have a little CRM tool that we use to help people. Every great recruiter's got a great CRM to help them manage their relationships, where you can.
I like the way you called it a little CRM tool.
Yeah.
Because CRM tools can be very daunting.
But ours is very simple, because as a recruiter, we'll talk to somebody. If they don't have a need right now, we put it on our calendar, follow up with them in 45 days. And it actually goes right in our Outlook and says, hey, give John a call, check in, see how he's doing. What can I do to help you today? And start building those, because you want to be networking with the people so that when the opportunities arise, you're who they call. And that takes building those relationships. It's not a one in and out and say, well, I reached out to John, so we're good. No, you've got to build that relationship.
Yeah. And that's one reason why I use MailChimp and do LinkedIn Lives and articles and so forth, because I figure there's about 6,000 people in there. At some point, I might pop up at a point when they need a coach. Now that's a little bit of just slinging stuff against the wall. But as I get more involved in LinkedIn and get more proficient and more present on LinkedIn, I'm finding more and more people are referencing what they found out about me to my posts and so forth. So I would also add that building a presence on LinkedIn is not a bad thing, regardless of whether you're looking for a job, looking for a change of career, looking to become an entrepreneur. I think that is today's business card, is LinkedIn.
Well, again, LinkedIn was originally created to help people eliminate the cold call. Today, I haven't made a cold call in years. Before I reach out to anyone, I can look them up on LinkedIn. Usually get a good look at what they look like. I know where they went to school. I have a good idea of where their career path and journey has been. I learn a little bit about them, maybe some of the volunteer work they've done. In the old days, when we used to remember we used to go in and meet with potential clients, and we always hoped we get like a couple minutes in their office before they come back so we can look around to find things to talk to. There's a sailboat in the corner. There's a picture over there. And that creates that initial dialogue. Well, today, we start that on, from the minute they say hello, I know enough about them to engage. I know where they live. I know where they went to school. I know a bit about them. And it's very, very easy. There's no
and
such
not only that, you can search on those criteria using Sales Navigator. You can search. So, I've narrowed my search down to a point where every conversation, including, you came through that LinkedIn group we're with, but almost everybody now that comes through Sales Navigator, I don't know who they are. They don't know who I am. But they're great conversations because there's been something that they've looked at my profile, said I'd like to talk to them. I've already looked at their profile and said I would like to talk to them. Even if it doesn't go in the direction that I'd like it to go. I mean, sometimes you just have amazing conversations and learn a lot.
And what I will say, LinkedIn is a great tool, but here's what I tell all my recruiters. It's simply a tool. Don't let it become a crutch.
Oh my God.
In my opinion,
obsession. I would say don't let it become obsession.
More important, we always start with a phone call first. If you can't connect with them on a phone call, leave a very detailed voice message, voicemail, follow up. If you can email them, that's great. LinkedIn is part of it, but we want to be careful that you don't just depend on LinkedIn. I've seen people out there that, hey, I have 5,000 connections. Well, how many of them you actually built a relationship?
No, and how many do you even know? I mean,
exactly.
The horrible truth is out of every 10 requests I have, I see somebody here, and 9 of them I don't know. Don't know. I mean, literally don't even recognize the name because of the sweeps I do of LinkedIn.
It's just a tool. It's a good tool, though.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, thank you, Tom. Lots of very interesting things. I think the watchword is get out there. In both senses, both the companies need to get out there and find good candidates, and good candidates need to get out there and find the good companies and the good jobs. And I'll be looking forward to continuing the dialogue. There is this thing forming now of people helping other people with their careers who have been there and done that. And
thank you very much for inviting me. We are creating a community. I'm intentionally not using the word database at Sonova. Right. And we're helping people, and we've got plenty of resources. We got videos online, and we're doing everything we can to try to help people with their career, with the expectation that at some point they might become a candidate for us. They may become a client when they need help. Our primary business is still executive search. And then we've got a number of them that are joining us as fractional partners to help us build and grow our business. Anybody out there looking, if there's anything I can do for you, please reach out to me. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Send me an email. I would absolutely ask you to purchase my book so I can become a best-selling author. It's called Where's Your Buffalo? It's out on Amazon. It's hardcover, ebook, and audio. And again, anything I can do to help, please reach out.
Excellent. Well, thank you. And I look forward to staying in touch. And thank you, everybody, for joining us, even if it was just for a few minutes.
All right, guys. Thank you.